contact with ill individuals and insist they isolate themselves until they have recovered and are symptom-free. Clean and sanitize frequently touched common surfaces and high-traffic areas in your home and workplace several times a day. Share these guidelines with others and help prevent the spread of illness and maintain a healthy environment. An ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure.
It is so inspiring to see young Namibians rise up above their circumstances and serve selflessly. This week, activists from various organizations descended upon the coastal town of Swakopmund to map a way forward for their organizations and also attended the parliamentary consultations on abortion.
Under those conditions, a woman is required to show that she's either been raped or underwent the pregnancy through incest. That's very degrading, and it really harms the dignity of the woman to re-traumatize her after she has went through that. And also, we need to unburden the process. We cannot have it that strenuous on women because, first of all, where is she going to find the money? Where is she going to find the support? Currently, there is one psychiatrist for every 100,000 Namibians over the population of Namibia. Just think about it. If you are coming from a rural and impoverished background, where are you going to find a psychiatrist in your community? So that is the aspect that the Voices for Choices rights are coming from, and that is the recommendations of our petition. So with the 200 and something signatures that we collected under the 63,000 that we currently had, we handed it in yesterday at the public hearing. And what we noted is while we were delivering our stance is that the mic was turned off. While we were delivering our stance on the need to appeal the law on legalizing abortion, is what we noticed that they would put the camera or either mic off while we were talking. They would allow the crowd to boo and laugh and make funny snide comments in the crowd, and then they would limit us on time. Like they would just give us 3 minutes, like it was like, and they would time it, have a timer, and then when 3 minutes hits, they would let us go off. And then when we would walk off, everybody in the hall would clap. And then what we also noted is that the pro-life movement were given like 10 minutes to talk. They were given like chairs to sit down, and the whole hall was quiet. So already there, we felt like our freedom to speech was restricted and that we weren't respected as humans, as Namibians, in a space where we were supposed to be protected by the government. Later on, they also brought the police on to take us off stage because we were trying to share voice notes of women who have obtained unsafe abortions in Namibia, and we wanted them to also share their story because they couldn't make it to the public hearing. They didn't want us to do that. The safety and security of women is under threat currently with the Abortion and Sterilization Act of 1975. It is an apartheid-era law that has been running since 1975. We are currently in 2021. It cannot threaten the state like this to just allow women to make decisions for themselves. I'm saying safety and security because the sexual and reproductive health rights of women are revoked and their safety of their health care is under threat. They don't have any reproductive health care responses currently in the Namibian government. Namibian health care does not provide women with that agency over their body. And I'm saying the security of women is being threatened because I, as a woman, do not have the right to decide when I am ready to bring a child into this world and under what conditions I want to. That hinders my economic development and social development as a person and infringes on my psychosocial livelihood as a woman. Men in Namibia do not have the same restrictions to their reproductive health. Their reproductive body is protected with the functions and processes that it has going on. A woman is not protected but controlled. And we only want that understood by the government.
For too long, we've had a government that doesn't have the political will to write policies that uplift this country. And we can see that in this year alone. In Parliament, we've only had 4 bills tabled in the August House. And none of those bills really speak to uplifting people out of poverty, uplifting people out of social issues, uplifting people out of the dire economic and social situation that COVID has put people in. Nothing on a basic income grant, nothing substantial on alleviating sexual and gender-based violence, nothing substantial on land reform, nothing substantial at all. One of those bills was the Appropriation Bill, and that is the only bill that has been passed, voted on, and approved by our elected representatives. So the government made sure that they would pass a bill that funds their pockets instead of uplifting the people. The other 3 bills are good bills that are meant to reform the country, or the other 2, I'd rather say. They speak to reforming the Magistrates Court and the High Court. And then the other bill is deeply, deeply homophobic. In fact, it is state-sanctioned homophobia, and that is the Domestic Violence Act. And that act specifically only protects domestic violence in opposite-sex relationship. So the government has prioritized tabling a bill during an economic recession, during COVID, during when we need to fix this unjust genocide negotiations. They've tabled the bill that promotes state-sanctioned homophobia and promotes violence amongst same-sex persons. So does the government really care about bread and butter issues, or do they care about their own personal political interests?
Check this out.
There was a silence that connected us all. But the journey started long before that day.
Coach has a gift to be able to spot talent a mile away.
I think the family kind of feeling makes the athletes feel like they want to perform for him.
This is a match made in heaven. We just become one. There was difficult times. I said to the girls, we didn't do all this just for one lump to take us off track. We started talking about this journey, and the way we actually painted that journey is almost perfectly the way it ended.
We thought that maybe one of them will make the finals. Both of them made the finals, and the rest is history.
Quiet broken by the firing of the gun, and they're off.
And here comes Christine Bommer in second place. Will they do it today? Oh, of course! 21-81.
This one belongs to us all as one.
Dear teachers, we know all the hard work you put in every day to make sure our kids get the best education possible. It's also our goal here at One Africa TV's #LearnOnOne. That's why we bring free quality supplementary lessons that are 100% Namibian, compliments of NMH's MyZone. Lessons include early childhood development programs and primary school lessons. These air on One Africa TV every weekday from 9 to 11 a.m. with repeats from 2 to 4 p.m. There's so much to learn with #LearnOnOne. Invite learning in.
Activist Omar van Reenen shared what went down at the parliamentary consultations on abortion.
This weekend in Walvis Bay, the Voices for Choices and Rights Coalition and Equal Namibia, which are both social movements fighting for equality in their respective fields, BCRC for reproductive justice and the repeal and reform of abortion, and Equal Namibia for the equality of LGBTQ persons. But our movements are so intersectional, and the experiences that Namibians face, young Namibians, women, queer Namibians, persons with disabilities, indigenous, their issues around social justice are also so intersectional. So we teamed up and we mobilized the community of Walvis Bay to come out to the public hearings of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Gender Equality. And they're doing public hearings on the abortion law and public consultations to report back to Parliament with their findings, and hopefully they'll vote in favor of pushing Namibia forward in terms of reproductive justice and repealing the abortion law so that women can be emancipated from an erroneous apartheid-era law that's holding them to the chains or shackled to the chains of colonialism in a born-free Namibia. And what we found was that the community understands that we are plagued with this restrictive law and with so many social issues like sexual and gender-based violence and a state system, both welfare and healthcare, that's failed us, and that we need policy that really speaks to the reality on the ground, the socioeconomic challenges women are facing, the lack of adequate healthcare women are facing, and various other aspects too. And reforming this law to make sure that the law becomes more liberalized so that women have their bodily autonomy is an answer to eradicating these social issues. And when we went mobilizing, our petition got around 200 signatures extra, which pushed the number of people who signed the legalization of abortion petition countrywide to 63,000 persons and supporters of reproductive justice. This is the highest petition or the most number of signatures our parliament got from the Namibian people, from supporters of reforming this law. And these are also the first public consultations of its kind. So we are optimistic and hopeful for change that we can believe in, hopeful for the fact that what we fought for this country, which is the promise of equality, especially for women, will be achieved. And that starts by legalizing abortion.
Venetia Shanjenka also shared her experiences after attending some of the meetings that occurred at the coast. Here's what she said transpired.
I'm here with the Voices for Choices and Rights Coalition, and we came down to Swakop for a civil society stakeholder engagement where we basically are LGBTQI organizations coming together so we can plan out the rest of the 4 years and basically our strategy, our advocacy and legal strategy, as well as policy reform to see how we can advance the rights of the LGBTQI. Basically, this call came because international stakeholders were noting that LGBTQI policy reform and legal advocacy is taking off in Namibia. So basically what they did is they made a call to all of us and they were like, we're too fragmented. We need to come together and re-strategize and put all of us on a table so that we can come with a combined approach in solidarity. Some of the obstacles that we definitely picked up was that there was a lot of work that was ended rapidly because we had no funding, we had no access to support from the government, or because we felt that we didn't have the support of anybody. So we stopped it. Most of the projects were stopped. So the advocacy for a few months went slow, mental illness of activists were affected. So that's one of the issues that we faced. And then we also felt like our lives were being threatened by the government and by other stakeholders who do not want this law to be reformed, who do not want same-sex couples to be married off. And what we stood around the table is that, first of all, we need to advance the economic development and the mental wellness of the LGBTQI community. Because right now we feel like we don't want to continue with this fight. That was the major thing that came out in the room this week. And I think it's good that it came out because it's not something that we addressed. We felt like it was an unending fight. And we don't want to fight anymore, we just want our rights. So it became more of a fight amongst us and with the government than actually a fight of advancing rights. So our livelihoods became threatened, and with that, with our livelihoods being affected, there was no capacity within us to continue with the work. So coming back here and re-strategizing was kind of like giving a new outlook on how we can go forward, bringing back all of the activism work was done throughout the year regarding the LGBTQI movement and the women's movement, bringing all of that together and being like, okay, fine, let's collect, combine, collaborate, and let's push the word out as in solidarity. So while we were here, we got word that the Namibian Parliament Standing Committee for Gender Equality and Family Affairs is coming to meet with the Walvis Bi community on the abortion law reform petition that was put out by the Voices and Choices Rights Coalition. I'm here representing the Voices and Choices for Rights Coalition, and we sent out our petition in July 2020. And to date, we've garnered 63,000 signatures. So with that petition being given, there's a lot of community dialogues that's been happening, as well as Parliament came to consult basically the community, like, do you want this or do you not want this?
I asked activist Omar van Renen just what challenges he thinks Namibians have with the abortion issue and to set the general tone of how the meeting went down.
I would say that with regards to reforming the campaign to legalize abortion, some of the challenges that we faced is the lack of information about how restrictive this law is, and the fact that there's a heavy presence from the opposing side and from the pro-life side that are clouding people's understanding of the law and what needs to be done to push women in this country forward, and the fact that access to their bodily autonomy is a must in this born-free country. But also, I would say I'm very disheartened in the manner in which the public consultations are taking place. This is not a referendum, and the members of Parliament are treating it as such. By having community members vote in these consultations, that is different. A referendum is different from a consultation, and the purpose of these hearings is for members of Parliament to go to the communities, hear what the people's sentiments are, and report back. The only people who should be voting in this are our elected representatives. So having people vote in a community hall on such a contentious issue really makes the process of this supposed to be democratic public consultation undemocratic by having a form of a referendum that wasn't approved by Parliament. Not all of the registered voters were informed that voting is taking place, and because the church did not specifically the church, but the pro-life groups didn't really respect the time given to the pro-choice persons. This might pressurize people who wanted to vote in favor of the law out of fear of stigma to not vote for it. And also throughout the process, both sides were not treated equally. There was a disproportionate favoring of the pro-life side. Also, how are you going to open a public meeting on such a contentious issue that really is at the root of some people's religious sentiments with a prayer in a secular state, and then have that prayer speak against pro-choice arguments, and have that prayer call pro-choice supporters lustful people with lustful desires? How are you going to call women wanting access to their bodily autonomy lustful, and painting women as promiscuous as if the only reason they are on this earth is to make children and as sexual objects? So the meeting did not start out in a manner that we would have appreciated and would give due process to both sides. And I hope our members of parliament can do better. And I hope the ombudsman can, really step in and make sure that justice is served to this process and that it remains democratic.
One Africa TV, happy birthday to you. Just sending a great, big, humongous thank you for the content that you give us, for the local authenticness of seeing our own very own faces on TV. Most we are within. And more than anything, always making sure that, you share with us and with the world, the royal hustlers, the ones that made it, and we drink from their well. And that more than anything is what I really, really appreciate about One Africa TV. So happy 18th birthday. You're finally legal now. Happy birthday to you, and many more to come.
Me and you, let's go to Ghana. Hey! Go and jump. This is Ghana. You've come here to seek for greener pastures. Make it your worthwhile. Any guinea fowl is Guinea. Guinea fowl has to do with Guinea. It's just the name of the fowl. So Ghana Jollof, is it Nigerian beans? What? Have you made before? No. Jasper! Help me!
Government called a meeting to ask the citizens to share their views on policing women's bodies. Venetia Shanjenka shared her views following the consultations on abortion in Walfish Bay.
But our biggest concern was that the information was brought through the Thursday when the meeting was on the Friday. So we were very worried, as they should have given the public more time to convene and to be aware of the meeting. So as VCRC, we have regional community mobilizers. So what we decided is let's try and see what we can do. And we went out the Thursday afternoon to try and mobilize as more signatures for our petition and to try and see the sentiment of the Walvis Bay community and also make them aware of the meeting. To our surprise, almost no one knew about the meeting. We garnered 200 signatures the Thursday afternoon alone, and we added that to the 63,000 signatures. And we handed that in on Friday when we all went to the meeting. We decided that we will go as a community, as a pro-choice community, and also to make sure that our voice is there. When we arrived there, we found a big group of church there with school kids, and we kind of felt like they were indoctrinating the children because they had posters printed out and they just gave it to the school children and told the school children to come not stand by our side. Already on that aspect, we were very worried because we don't want the abortion law reform aspect to narrative to be controlled by the church, because what's happening is they are making it an issue of morality when it should be an issue on health care. Abortion is part of family planning, and we need to educate people on the sexual and reproductive health rights that need to be given to women, the agency over their body to decide for their future. So that is why we went, because we want to ask them, is it a situation of pro-birth or pro-life? Because how can you want this child to be born but not being fed, not being educated, not being housed? We want them to understand the narrative that they are coming from, because you cannot let a woman exchange her value to be a servant of the patriarchy. Because what women are basically doing is that they are exchanging their bodily autonomy to bring life into this world against their wish. That is again infringing on Article 8, which means that no human, Article 8 of the Constitution, meaning that no person shall go through inhumane and degrading treatment. I think it's quite degrading expecting women to be ready to bring a life into this world that they have no capacity to raise, that they have no means to raise. And that's why we want this Abortion and Sterilization Act to be appealed. We also want it to be appealed on the note of the route to obtain a legal abortion currently under the current act. It's a very excruciating and strenuous process. To start off with, you have to find 2 medical practitioners, not from the same practice, and each of them have to give a certificate. You have to obtain a certificate from a magistrate's court, and you have to go and obtain a certificate from a psychiatrist. That is all very, very fun. It's very financially exploitative for the woman, as well as traumatic to go through that process.
I asked activist Omar van Rieenen to share his views on what the Namibian mindset around abortion should be.
The mindset on this is not where it should be. Firstly, this is an apartheid-era law that was written in 1975 by a white supremacist regime, and mostly men, white men, to maintain the legacy of, to maintain white legacy. They were fearful that the black population would outnumber the white population, and that is why they enacted this law. Now, in a born-free Namibia, this law still holds women to the chains of this colonial apartheid-era restrictive abortion law. Abortion is permitted in Namibia under restrictive cases, like rape, like incest, a threat to the mental health of the woman, or if the fetus has defects. But even in those cases, there are so much cumbersome barriers to access the law that creates undue burden on the person seeking abortion in those cases. Imagine you are raped. You have to get a certificate from a magistrate's court to give you permission, and you must get permission from medical practitioners. With the medical practitioners, two of them can't be working for the same department. They need to be certified. They need to have been practicing for 2 years, and none of those 2 medical practitioners who give you permission to have the abortion can perform the abortion. And again, you are raped. So you have to go through all of these cumbersome barriers. You have to go through court to register, to file the case. And we do know that a lot of rape is not reported because of fear of filing the case. And now you are adding even more restrictive barriers onto that when the justice system already fails you. And also, another barrier is if you're underage, you need permission from your parent, guardian, or the Ministry of Gender. What other law that polices women's body polices men's body equally? No other law, and that is why this law is not gender equal. That is why this law is invasive to women's bodily autonomy. This is why this law is invasive to reproductive justice in this country. That's the mindset. And then I think for so long we've had a government that does not have the political will to enact policies that work for the people. So for too long we've had a government that doesn't have the political will to write policies that uplift this country. And we can see that in this year alone. In Parliament, we've only had 4 bills tabled in the August House. And none of those bills really speak to uplifting people out of poverty, uplifting people out of social issues, uplifting people out of the dire economic and social situation that COVID has put people in. Nothing on a basic income grant, nothing substantial on alleviating sexual and gender-based violence, nothing substantial on land reform, nothing substantial at all. One of those bills was the Appropriation Bill, and that is the only bill that has been passed, voted on, and approved by our elected representatives. So the government made sure that they would pass a bill that funds their pockets instead of uplifting the people. The other 3 bills are good bills that are meant to reform the country, or the other 2, I'd rather say. They speak to reforming the Magistrates Court and the High Court. And then the other bill is deeply, deeply homophobic. In fact, it is state-sanctioned homophobia, and that is the Domestic Violence Act. And that act specifically only protects domestic violence in opposite-sex relationship. So the government has prioritized tabling a bill during an economic recession, during COVID, during when we need to fix this unjust genocide negotiations. They've tabled the bill that promotes state-sanctioned homophobia and promotes violence among same-sex persons. So does the government really care about bread and butter issues, or do they care about their own personal political interests?
And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching.
Joseph Parkman was in and out of prison, dealing and doing drugs. Then a drug deal went wrong. Joseph was robbed, handcuffed, and scared straight out of the business.